You know what? I was going to tell you how important you are to me because I stepped away from a game of Star Wars-themed Monopoly to get on the phone with you, and then you messed up my name.
I like this game.
You know what, though? I think I pulled Eva Marie and forgot the name right at mid-sentence. How do I do that? I don't know, and I'm not even a looker either, so.
I'm going to warn everybody listening tonight, though, I am very sick, so I might mute you to go die of a coughing fit at some point. I apologize for that in advance.
No problem, man, no problem. All good. Everybody knows who you are. You definitely got yourself a following, that's for sure. And above anything else, I wanted to introduce you to our listeners. I know Jorge's got his fan base with his guys, his people that have listened into his shows, and so I figured to introduce you to our listeners and educate us on just who you are, what got you into wanting to pursue the dream of being a professional wrestler, you know, how long you've been doing it, and who were some of your inspirations growing up, you know, kind of touching on that, because I know we joked about it before talking about it, but I think I might have posed that question to you. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. We were talking about being Bobby Heenan guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of bring us up to speed on who Alex Matthews is. What you all about, man?
I am the patron saint of violence. That's the ring name there, and I have been in the business right around 4 years. So I'm relatively green still.
That's cool.
I was originally trained by a guy named Dallas Riley, and I had started in like a small time indie in the middle of nowhere that didn't really have a clear direction. There was a lot of old timers that refused to grow and evolve with the business, so I kind of got stuck in this little rut, and Dallas was the guy that actually plucked me out of that and, you know, gave me my own 2 feet to stand on and got me rolling, and then years later after that, it was actually Dagan Briggs who came through and pushed me on to the next level. So, I have had about 4 matches with my current tag team partner, Luke Spencer, with the Saints of Chaos, and it was actually the wrestling doctor, Hal Lee. I like to give credit to everybody, so I'll say everybody's names if I can think of who said what. It was the wrestling doctor, Hal Lee, who actually has a website, ProWrestlingCSI.com. It's pretty cool for anybody that wants any kind of help with their gimmick or, you know, how to get better in the business. He's got a great mind for the business. But he saw Luke and myself on shows together, and we were doing something kind of similar. We looked kind of similar, and we wrestled kind of similar. So he came up with the idea to put us together, and so far it's going really, really well. So that's what I've got going on currently. I've also got a couple of things coming up here in the singles world that I'm pretty excited about, too.
So as far as inspirations to becoming a professional wrestler, who are a couple of inspirations to you?
Well, the first TV that I ever remember seeing, like any television at all, was Surfer Sting. My very first memory of watching TV. And I was just so mesmerized by this guy. It was just the coolest guy ever in the history of the universe. And then it hit the mid-'90s when they were doing the NWO and the Crow Sting, and I was like, oh my God, I have to be that guy one day. So I kind of grew up wanting to be Sting. Is really what got me into wrestling. Obviously, cool. I don't want to be the next Sting anymore. I used to, but now I want to be the first Alex Matthews. So
there you go.
That's the guy that put the idea in my head.
That's good. No, I mean, obviously people have their inspirations, and ultimately we grew up, you know, we see guys that we grew up watching, whether it's from the Hogan Savage era, from the Steve Austin Rock era, from the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels era, even up to the PG Cena era and so forth. We all have people we definitely want to grow up and be like, but ultimately when you get into this, you want to be discovered for who you are, not who you can imitate.
Yeah, I think if everybody's being honest, every worker started out as a mark. You know.
Of course.
A lot of guys would try to pretend like they're not marks, but everybody is. I mean, we wouldn't do it if we weren't mesmerized by it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know I was, and I'm not even a wrestler. I tried it though. It's just not my cup of tea. I tip my hat to all those guys and gals and coming up in the business, or even who paved the way for a lot of the stars today. They bust their butts and they made it look easy. They made it look doable.
Yeah.
And believe me, it's
doable,
but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, I couldn't do the job that you do, so hats off to you for that job. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'd be the most boring podcast host ever.
I actually was, believe it or not.
He already accomplished that.
Shut up! I don't need extra help.
I wish you know I'm a good person. I like to, help people.
Well, the thing of it is like I said, we each find our niche in life and what we're good at, and you know what, you've come a long way. I mean, you took the step that many people have either tried and failed, or tried and flourished. And so far, if you've been in there at least 4 years, that's showing you right there that you're doing something right. You know, obviously you want to get your name out there a little further and start traveling a little more and who knows? I mean, you're still young. You're still a young man. I'm sure you would definitely love to travel to maybe other countries like Japan or even Australia or somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, I've always, from the time when I first started to understand what wrestling was and, that it happens all over the world, that was always a dream of mine to wrestle in the Tokyo Dome. I was just having that conversation earlier today, actually, about how we had Pandora playing at the house, and my entrance music came on Pandora, and so I started marking out, introducing myself to the ring, whatever, and then I did it in Japanese too, just because I want to wrestle in Tokyo.
I think it would be a great education for you to get out to Japan. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely get the silliness from Dallas.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick. Sorry to mean to cut you off there, Austin, but in the wrestling business, and most will say this, I want to get your feeling on it. Do you feel that, I mean, in the few years that you've been in it, it's a constant learning experience? Do you feel like you know just about everything you need to know? How do you feel? I mean, most will say it is a constant learning experience, but not everybody sees it that way.
Well, I mean, I don't feel like anybody knows everything they need to know. I don't think Ric Flair knows everything he needs to know. I mean, I think it's... Let's
start taking the ladies on Space Mountain. That's another story. But,
yeah, wrestling is one of those things that nobody's ever going to know it all. The best we can do is just try to figure out what we're good at and master that and try to learn other things outside of that. But, I mean, there's always something you can be doing better. And I've had to weed out things out of my repertoire, things that, just didn't fit me, or things that I wasn't good at, that I had to find a different way to do them. So that's part of it, too, I think, is finding out what works for you specifically, because not everybody's going to go out and be, a high flyer, and not everybody's going to go out and be a big powerhouse. You got to find what works for you and figure out how to make that work every night,
That's like what you were saying earlier about you being Sting. You don't want to be Sting. You don't want to be anybody else. You want to be you. You want to be the first Alex Matthews. And that's what works for you. And what works for you is going to make you different from everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have the hopes that, one day little kids will watch me on TV and say, oh, I want to be that guy. But, then they get in the business and figure out that, they can borrow from me, because we all borrow from somebody. I mean, there's everything's been done. It's all recycled at this point. So everybody's borrowing from somebody, but I hope that I can have the same impact on other kids in the future that, guys like Sting have had on me. So
absolutely. Well, I mean, how far have you been able to travel in wrestling for the independents around where you live? I mean, how far out have you got to travel? Excuse me.
I live in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida, which is right there on it's pinned right there between the ocean and the Georgia line. So I've done a lot of Florida, a lot of Georgia. I've done Alabama, Louisiana, North Carolina. So I've been around a little bit, but not a whole lot. North Carolina and Louisiana have definitely been the lengthy trips for me. And then when you're in the car so long that you take a nap and wake up, take another nap and wake up, and you're still not there.
Well, I mean, have you considered getting into contacting maybe Luke Hawks and see what he can? I mean, be working with Wildcat out there.
Yeah, I had actually talked to Luke a couple of years ago when Della, he's got a friend Della who is actually Vordell Walker's wife, who's both of them are dear friends of mine, and we used to go out there and stay with her when we were working in Louisiana, and Della ran a couple of shows of her own, and I think she had Luke handling her books. So I was talking to him at that time, but we just were never able to find anything at that time. But like I said, I've only been in for 4 years, so that would have made me really, really green at that time. So it's probably worth another run at this point.
There's a lot of wrestling down in Louisiana. Like a lot.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because Austin definitely keeps tabs on a lot of the wrestling circuits out there, and it's not even just Wildcat. I mean, they got the Elite Championship Wrestling out there that's going to have their shows, and it is indie, but you know what? It's very, very popular. I can't say that enough. We've had the Elite owner on with us, and I know Austin is at every single show, and he can tell you. I don't even have to tell you. I let him tell you.
Yeah, we also had what's his name? One Man Mike Dell, the new Wildcat Worldwide Champion, on last week.
There you go.
So there's there's a lot of people and a lot of stuff going on in Louisiana. Definitely a big place for wrestling right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
But at the same time, I want to tell you too, Alex, that it's not so much that we're trying to tell you who we had on the show, but contacts that you can definitely keep, and unless you've already reached out to them yourself, obviously would be guys like even NWA President Bruce Tharp. Somebody to consider coming to work for and seeing what life is like at working in one of the most prestigious companies in the world. Really, I mean, Mark, I mean, putting yourself out there definitely. I mean, I know that obviously this is something you definitely want to do, and hey, if we can ever help in any way, you let us know. So.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, I'm always looking for new stuff to do. I got a couple of regular bookings now, and I'm fortunate that they're in the surrounding area. I know most of them, so I don't have to, I'm not losing a whole lot of money right now, thankfully.
True.
I have been going down to South Florida. That one takes a toll, but Florida's such a long state that, it sounds like staying in, because it sounds like, okay, you're staying in the state, so it's not that far, but really, when it's like 500 or 600 miles to stay in the state, you know what I mean? So,
have you tried traveling through Texas? Holy cow!
Yeah, I pulled that one. Not wrestling related, but like
it is a hell of a drive. Let me tell you.
It's horrible. I went through Texas coming back from Nevada. It was absolutely terrible. Although it wasn't as bad when I went out to Nevada, I drove through Kansas, and that was the worst drive I've ever done in my life.
You didn't see any twisters out that way, did you?
Kansas is like, okay, you're coming out of Missouri, you're going through Kansas City, and then you leave Kansas City, and there's wheat for 45 minutes, and then you go through Topeka, and then there's wheat for hours and hours, and it's like wheat, cow, corn, cow, wheat, gas station, corn, cow. That's the whole trip after that.
I don't know why anybody would want to stay in Kansas. I mean, they're constantly getting their houses taken down. They still are wanting to live there. I don't get it, but
well, it's kind of like going back to you guys. You, Alex, living in Florida, and Austin, you living there in Louisiana. you guys get hit with hurricanes on occasion. What keeps you staying there?
It's not that bad.
Florida gets hit numerous times with hurricanes, whether it be right through where Alex lives or even through Orlando or wherever. I mean, it's just a matter of that's just where you call home.
Yeah, I think we've gotten really fortunate with we've been real fortunate with the hurricanes the past couple of years, and then Jacksonville was an area that got hit repeatedly for a couple of years, and then it's kind of like, God just decided to give us a break at some point. Like, okay, I've been pounding you guys for years, so we haven't had any real activity for a couple of years now, knock on wood. But what's funny to me about Florida, too, is everybody thinks about the beach, but they don't realize that, like, a lot of Florida's, like, farms and stuff. Looks like Georgia, parts of it does. So everybody thinks about beach and hurricanes. I'm sure California, which, if I'm not mistaken, is where you are, California, everybody probably thinks beach, but, I've been to California. I know there's a lot more to it than that. So.
Oh, sure, absolutely. But, no, I mean, and it's understandable. I mean, I wondered myself with my family. I have family in Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas.
Yeah.
I've lived through hurricanes myself. They're pretty scary, but and it's it's funny because nobody. I mean, when I in my first year living there, you see the hurricanes preparing to come and hit land, and you're freaking out, and you look around, and nobody gives a damn. People are continuing working. They're grocery shopping. They're doing. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, people! I mean, hello. There's a storm coming, and I'm like a tourist freaking out, wondering what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna hurry my butt home. But you all probably call that like a normal day in the neighborhood.
I like it.
Anybody that's been around for a while, I've seen a couple of them. They're like, whatever.
That's what happens. Exactly. Like when the last hurricane, what was it? Isaac. Well, I think it was Isaac. I'm not sure. The last year, I went outside and I sat down on the trailer, and I was outside, and it was so calm. I like the calm before the storm. Oh my God, I enjoy them, even though it's terrible. But
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm a California boy. I can't help that. That's just where I was born and bred.
Prison.
Yeah, the calm storm's kind of spooky though, because you sit there and it's like the most chill weather ever, but you can feel it coming on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
It's really kind of creepy.
Now, if you actually had the chance to get a chance to work with, say, I know we hit on this before when we talked prior, seeing as many great managers have come in over the years, do you see yourself more having a manager if you actually had the chance, or more of a valet? And if you had the choice of either or, who would be your choice as a valet? Who would be your choice as an actual manager?
Oh, man. Well, I have a really stupid answer to that question.
Oh, please. Yes. Go ahead.
I am a fan of pretty girls.
And nothing wrong with that.
So maybe like a pretty girl valet.
Look at the women that they've had. I mean, they've had women like Sherry, women like Liz, women like Mila was a valet at one point.
They can play the same role that the manager plays anyway. I mean, you get all the same benefits from them. So, and they have more ways to distract the opponent. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the case in point, you think about SummerSlam 1988, when there was the Mega Powers, Mega Bucks. Liz, the quiet damsel type person, she's so quiet and petite, drops, cuts off, shows her bikini bottom, and it stuns everybody. She's not that kind of person. She was really looked at as like this regal type person all these years later.
But
on
the flip side of that token, though, there are some of the managers that would be really cool to have around just for picking their brain. It's like active people, like people that are active right now. Paul Heyman would be a great guy to just pick his brain to see what he knows about the business, try to learn something from him, or Dutch Mantel or Zeb Coulter, rather.
Absolutely.
Would be a great person to get in their minds and learn what they know about the business,
The evil scientist of professional wrestling and Yosemite Sam of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Speaking of
but
Zeb
there are
Coulter,
definitely some great minds right there.
Speaking of Zeb Coulter and Paul Heyman, do you keep up with all the stuff happening in WWE and TNA and stuff?
On and off. I mean, I try to pay attention to the products because, I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Just because you should. I mean, why? If you want to work for, XYZ Corp, then you're going to pay attention to what XYZ Corp is doing. So, from that aspect, I try to pay attention to it, but I don't find myself as drawn into it as I was before I became a worker. I kind of just look at it as part of the job now. Now, some of the matches that happen, I still get mesmerized by some of them. I mean, whatever it's, Punk and Daniel, or Punk and Brian for the title, those are still fantastic matches that I get pulled into. But the product as a whole, I try to just keep tabs on what's going on.
Have you got the chance to go to a WrestleMania? Considering that they were in Florida twice.
Yeah, I haven't. I actually haven't made a whole lot of really big events. I used to go to a lot of indies. But,
nice. Those are still good.
I've been to one major event, and it was a lockdown in 2006. And it's kind of funny. I'm gonna give you some dirt on myself. Anybody that's listening and has this DVD, go look at it during Christian Cage versus Abyss when they fight into the crowd before the bell even rings, and there's this punk kid in the crowd with Sting face paint on, looking like a kid in a candy store. That was me.
That's you.
That's me. So if you have that DVD,
go look at it.
That's horrible. That was my TNA pay-per-view debut.
And I bet you Austin has probably seen that and knows exactly what you're talking about. Austin does tend to visit quite a bit the TNA shows and gets all their DVDs, and I bet you he's seen it too.
Well, I did the same thing, not Sting, with the Jeff Hardy face paint like 7 years ago, I think. And I went to one of their shows, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I went up to Don West, and I'm like, hey, does this Jeff Hardy face paint look cool? And he obviously said it was cool, but when I go back, look at the picture, it was like squares in my face and triangles and different shapes. It didn't look anything like Jeff Hardy. I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking?
Who knows what Jeff's going to put on his face, though, you know what I mean? It could be different every day.
Well, I was trying to press him, but I'm looking back and all these shapes. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, that's funny too when you think about it. Like, from a fan perspective, before any of us were involved in the business, you think about things that are going to be cool to the person that you're there to see. Like, I was there to see Sting, so I thought, oh, how cool when Sting sees that I have his face paint on, as if Sting's really going to take the time to notice that on this pay-per-view in front of all these people. And he's going to stop and be like, hey, look at that kid, he's cool. You know, like, we used to really think things like that, you know, and it's crazy to look back at it and see just how far apart my perception of the business then was versus my perception of the business now, you know.
Absolutely. That's still a cool moment, though. I mean, you can say you were there and you got to experience something like that, the electricity of it all, and I think that's a drug that keeps a lot of the stars going. I mean, even past their prime, they dig that whole feel of coming into the crowd. You know,
they're definitely into it. You just, I as a fan, I always had this idea in my head that they were going to notice me specifically. You think, I don't know, it's kind of silly, but I look back on stuff like that. It makes me feel good because I see where I was compared to where I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate how far you've come.
That's part of what keeps me going. And I think that a lot of guys forget to do that, forget to look back at when they were silly and, you know, and when they were just super smart. they forget to look back and see how far they've come. You can't see how far you've come if you don't look behind you, you know?
That's true. That's true. That's very true. And just to kind of reiterate something that you mentioned earlier, you have some upcoming shows, and also want to touch on your social media aspect. I mean, if fans want to keep up with what you're doing, I know you got a Facebook. Do you also interact with other aspects of social media, or do you stick solely to Facebook?
You know, I'll be honest. I'm kind of social media retarded. I mean, everybody's got a Facebook and a Twitter and a 4chan and whatever the picture one is. What's
Instagram?
Instagram. Now everybody's got everything, and I'm just like, that's too much for me to keep up with. My Facebook page is challenging enough for me.
Fair enough. Yes, and if they want to keep up with following you on Facebook, do you accept most of the fans and most people that would want to add you as a friend? I mean, do you have things that you obviously won't add? Obviously. Yeah,
I have almost no filter process at all. I pretty much just like, okay, add. So it's bitten me in the rear end a couple times.
Understood. All right, and I mean, and where were your upcoming shows? You said you have right there in Jacksonville, right?
No, I mean surrounding area. I don't have anything on the calendar in Jacksonville right now, but I'll be in Columbus, Georgia this weekend for Syndicate Promotions Wrestling. It's going to be my second time out there for that. There's actually a match on YouTube now. It's a casket match, me versus Dallas Riley from the last Syndicate show. So yeah, that was pretty cool to come in during the Halloween show and get to see the casket match for my first match there. You know, I think a lot of guys in my position get brought in and told, you know, oh, you go and do this little spot, and I got to have a big spot, so that was pretty cool. And then I've got, let's see, I had something the following weekend, but it kind of got moved around. I've got Championship Wrestling Entertainment, and on December 6th, they're doing a Rise of the King tournament, and I'm in that. That's down in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I've got Showtime Wrestling in Albany, Georgia coming up. I've got a couple things. I've been doing Revolution Championship Wrestling in Baxley, Georgia. That's been primarily a tag team spot for me too. Me and Luke have been doing our thing there, so that's pretty cool. We're in the middle of a tag team title tournament now to crown the first ever champions, and so far we're undefeated in the tournament. So yeah, it's the
keeping you busy
the next couple of weeks.
That is awesome, man. And at this point, I just wanted to say on behalf of Austin and myself, man, we really want to thank you for taking the time to sit down and just have some fun and talk some wrestling and talk some crazy ass weather and
in face paint.
And there you go, and face paint. And, you know, I definitely think, you know, I can speak for Austin on this. We definitely would love to have you come back in 2014 for sure, if you're up for it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, maybe I can come back when I'm not sick and coughing.
Sure.
I can talk
a little bit. Definitely have some more to talk about, and maybe we'll even convince you to go to a WrestleMania or something. Hell, who knows? Maybe we'll just talk about some more crazy-ass weather. I don't know. Or face paint. But I definitely want to say, wish you the best. Hope you feel better. Get tons of rest. Drink lots of fluids. Listen to me, I'm a doctor all of a sudden. Hell, I'm a man of many hats. Okay. But we want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope you feel better, man.
Definitely.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem, man. It was a pleasure.
All right, man. You guys have a good night.
You too. Hello, you're on with Austin and Felix.
Hey, what's going on, Austin and Felix? It's Greg Skelley.
How you doing, Mr. Skelley? Thank you for taking time to join us tonight.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
definitely been trying to get people to our listeners to know just exactly what your group is about. And I say group. I don't like to call it a page because there's so many ridiculously trashy pages that are out there that, like I was saying, telling Austin, that really don't scratch the surface on what it is that they know about the world of professional wrestling. I mean, I don't even claim to even know that much either. So.
Well, you can be a great historian and there's still things to learn, and that's the basis of what we have. And the group really is there to reach people, to get the message out. It's the ground floor to something bigger that me and Jimmy are working on. I'm hoping he'll be here on the line here. Should be calling any minute. But, I mean, we want to have a legitimate historian society, something that hopefully will be as well regarded as the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame out in New York, as the Cauliflower Alley Club, we plan on having a full-size website. We've got some books that we're discussing. I've been, for quite some time, as you guys probably know, laying the groundwork to do my first documentary film on the life and death of Dino Bravo.
I remember hearing about that,
Yeah, and that's there's a lot goes into that, a lot of interviews, a lot of research, and that's kind of what got me into doing the historian part of all this. Was I was reading and hearing so much stuff that was just so inaccurate from people who were so sure that they knew what they were talking about, and then I realized the WWE is about the only major source of history, and honestly, it's very embellished. There's omissions. I mean, it's a marketing tool. Their history lesson is nothing but a marketing tool, and I understand that. That's smart business on McMahon's part, but it's not really what I'm about. And I knew getting into this that Jimmy was my guy I wanted to partner up with. And ironically, he shared the same vision as me without us even really going over that. We just kind of threw the group together, and I didn't even start promoting it until about 3 weeks ago.
And it's really started to take off quite a bit.
Yeah, thanks to guys like you, a lot of knowledgeable people. There's some workers on there, and they're active, unlike a lot of pages and groups. I mean, George Steele's on there almost every day, Paul LeDuc, Fleming's on there. There's a lot of guys that are on there. I'm hoping to get more. We have some very credible historians, Terry Kent, Barry Rose, Tom Burke, Bertrand. There's a lot of guys we got on there that know their stuff. And really, my goal is to have a society of historians where we have an expert on virtually every era, every territory, every facet of the industry, and I enjoy what you guys put on there. I enjoy what you guys are doing here. You're getting out a message. It's not just fluff entertainment. Really enjoyed your Bruno interview. That I would love to interview Bruno about the Italian connection. Just absolute fabulous interview. Is Jimmy with us yet? I don't want to be babbling up the whole time.
He's definitely on. He's been on with us for a few minutes now. I just brought him on with us.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah, hey, guys. Hey there.
Hey, Matt. You guys can you hear?
Why don't you give us your insight, Jimmy? I want to hear what you have to say, buddy.
Yeah, if you need me to slow down, because I know I've got the British accent and everything, just let me know. But
not a problem.
Pretty much the same as Greg, though. Like, I see we're going to go for the website, and we want it to lead to actually documenting history, not just, as you say, the WWE marketable history. We want to go all the way back. He's talking about Bruno Sammartino in the 60s. We want to go 100 years back further than that, back to 1860s, 1870s, when you had guys like Professor Miller.
Nice.
And,
yeah, and believe me, Jimmy's the guy to do that. Jimmy's 19th century knowledge is just absolutely baffling. That yes, it's incredible, and we get a good mixture, I think, which is going to lead to bigger things. Because our idea isn't just, to have something so we can post a few things. We want the website so we can do in-depth articles. I mean, as you guys know, you can't make a post on a page or a group that's, going to be like 5 or 6 pages long in a magazine, because people are going to lose interest while they're skimming through Facebook. So, we give tidbits. We try to give, bulletin parts and paraphrase things and do all that, whereas the website will allow us to do more in-depth articles, legitimate journalism, and, we're going to put together the books. The books will be made available when we get them done. We're hoping to link up with some other fine historian groups. I'm hoping to get something together with the guys at Mid-Atlantic Gateway to start, and, there's some other people that I'd like to get involved with.
Mr. Skelley, I was going to ask you about Chris Parsons. Do you know, I'm not sure if you're aware of him at all, Wrestling Relics or something like that?
Wrestling Relics, yeah. Chris is a great historian. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable guy. He and I have traded information and pictures for a while now. We're not like good buddies or anything, but we...
Oh, no, I was just because I know he was contributing a lot to my Bobby Heenan page that I have. And that's what I said. I'm always on the lookout for more material with Bobby, as he'd had such a tremendous career, not just in WWE, but he was also somebody who struck me as somebody who definitely knew his stuff, and had some great material to work with as well. And I was just curious as to seeing if he's somebody that you guys are going to be working with in this group as well. I mean, just out of curiosity.
Well, we haven't reached out per se to anybody directly yet. Like we're at the ground floor right now, but I wanted the feelers out there. I've already identified a lot of people that I want to bring into what I'm hoping I can legitimately call an organization soon. And he is definitely towards the top of my list. He is just a fabulous guy. With a lot of great historian skills, and that's pretty much what I'm looking for, And I got, in my opinion, the most thorough researching historian as my partner, Jimmy, that I've come across. And believe me, I've been doing this for quite some time. I've been documenting and doing historian work since probably around '93. Which, I've dated myself. I'm an old fart, but. Jimmy has probably caught me in some areas, surpassed me in other areas, and I was driving when he was still in diapers. So, that tells you how thorough the man is.
When you started,
he definitely does his research.
I hadn't watched my first wrestling event yet.
What's that, Jimmy?
When Greg started in 1993 doing his research, I hadn't watched my first wrestling event yet.
And I'd already watched for 15 years. So I go back. I was lucky enough. My parents, upper middle class. We had one of those huge satellite dishes that were like the size of a Volkswagen Bug, long before DirecTV and Dish Network.
Yes,
and I got to watch wrestling. Yeah, I got to watch wrestling guys from all over the country. I even got stuff from up in Canada, because some of that stuff was broadcast out in New York and Detroit and areas like that, and I could get weak signals, and that's how I got into Dino Bravo when I was young, because I got to watch the Mid-Atlantic stuff. I got to watch AWA. I got to watch the stuff out in Quebec. So it was fun. I got to record some stuff in the early '80s and made some money selling tapes to people who'd never seen that stuff before. It was a good time. And a lot better than the wrestling I'm seeing today. But there's always hope. There's always hope.
Well, I do want to actually pose a question to you, and I think I'm safe to say I can include Austin on this as well as we work together on this. But we were both talking some time ago about bringing Bruno back in 2014 as we've kept in contact with his manager. We would love to invite you to come and join us if and when we set a date to have him come back and have you come on, because above anything else, we know that you have great respect for the man and what he's done. And I think, obviously you wanted to touch on some questions that you wanted to ask him. and we would love to have you join us if and when that time happens. We would definitely keep tabs on that and let you know.
Well, gee, something like that, I would need at least 5 or 6 minutes notice.
Oh, of course, of course.
yeah. 5 or 6 minutes notice, and I'm in. You know, hell yeah, I'll be on that. And I can't speak for Jimmy, but I'm guessing, just guessing, that he's going to say, yeah, mate. No, that wasn't good. I sounded Australian.
That was a bit Aussie. But I think I would say something like, yeah, definitely, mate.
Yes. You know, with the Professional Wrestling Historical Society, everybody, I was saying this earlier, that everybody's here for the same reason, and that's to educate others and get educated themselves. And I really, really respect what you guys are doing here, like more than, like there are no words to describe how much I respect what you guys are doing.
And you know what's
really
funny about this, guys, is that Austin, believe it or not, as young as he is, he's only 16 years old and has such a great admiration and does research of his own, which is why I thought he would definitely get a kick out of this, because I know he appreciates those who came before him, stars who came before him.
Only 16? Really? Wow, you've got a lot of knowledge there for a 16-year-old young man there. I'm going to be scared when you're about 35.
Trust me, I'm not as stupid as most people are this age.
Oh, no, that's not, by all means, Austin, it's not a mark to calling you bad or anything. No, it's a compliment, believe me. And you know more than most people my age that I run across on the internet. Ain't that right, Jimmy?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm 25, and people always say I'm young and I know a lot. Well, from what you've posted, that's damn impressive.
Yes.
Well, definitely something to be proud of.
I know a few things from my age.
It definitely, it's something you should definitely be proud of. You know, I listen to some people, and they'll say, here's case in point of how ignorant some people can be about things. You know, it's one thing to love a wrestler or an ideal or anything, but to blindly just follow it through all reason is just maddening. As you guys may recall, Bret Hart has stated that he always refused to job to Dino Bravo. Now, of course, I've done extensive research on Dino Bravo's career, and I can tell you right now,
of course,
Bret Hart jobbed Dino Bravo multiple times, and at least 3 of them were videotaped that I have seen with my own eyes. And I brought that up that, you know, because somebody was saying Bret said it, so it must be true. And I was like, no, whoa, back up.
Exactly.
Just because he said it, you know, doesn't make it right. And I'm not bashing on Bret. I'm just using this as an example. I actually posted the video of him doing the job to Dino Bravo, and I still had people refusing to believe that he wasn't telling the truth. I'm just like, okay, now you've seen the match. Now, how are you going to argue? And they still did. It was mad.
You're right.
Yeah,
well, the thing is that he's such a hero. He's such an icon in Canada. I'm not saying that Dino wasn't, by no means, but I mean, you can't when there's somebody that's so blind to a particular liking of somebody, like Bret, for instance. There was a lot of issues about him. You know, some would claim he's the greatest of all time. He this and that and the other. They don't know. They only know what the stars let you know. They don't know exactly the details, the sordid details, because I know Bret wasn't an angel by no means. You know, I've actually I've read Julie's book. I've had Julie on the show with us many times.
Julie's awesome.
Wonderful lady.
Julie is an awesome lady, yeah.
And also she's getting back into wrestling herself. She does attend the indies out there in Calgary, and has her family that are a part of it. I believe Michelle Billington's family, her daughter, and even Diana Hart's son, also. Yeah.
Their family is still very entrenched in it. It's not a knock on Bret, but by no means. Here's a few factors with Bret and why Bret comes up when I'm talking about the internet wrestling community, as everybody dubs it, is you got to think, when he finally hit the top spot, that's when the internet was really starting to come around. So most of the internet babies are Bret Hart fans. And you also have to think the majority of people who want to just crown him the greatest ever from Canada don't know anything about anybody from Canada before Bret Hart. They don't know anything about Whipper Watson. They don't know anything about Robert. They don't know anything about Bravo. They don't know anything about Mad Dog Vacon, Paul LeDuc, Joseph LeDuc. Rick Martel, none of those guys. No, if they know anything about Dino Bravo, was at the end of his career, and Rick Martel is the model, and pretty much that's it. So, you know, a lot of, and that's where we go back to what me and Jimmy are doing, is we're trying to educate. And we've put some things out there that had some flaws in it, and were pointed out by other guys who had great knowledge. You know, there's a lot of old school fans that saw some of this stuff firsthand, so if we get erroneous reports or misinterpret something, there's somebody there to call us on it. And the unique thing about our group / organization is the people involved handle it with respect. I believe, Jenny, you posted something, and it wound up being Dick Beyer, the Destroyer, wrestling a bear instead of the Great Bolo or somebody.
Yeah, I took a picture. And it was labelled as the Great Bolo. I posted it without thinking, and then someone pointed out, no, that's actually the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, and I realised I've totally missed the mask, because it was a totally different mask to what Bolo wore. Fair enough, I corrected it, because we all learn from making mistakes. That's how the wrestling historians work. Someone makes a mistake, so that actually, no, I think this is what happened. I've got a newspaper article that can prove it. And it's helping each other learn as you go by making mistakes, not ridiculing or anything. It's just helping each other.
Yeah, there is no ridicule. The mistake was pointed out by a couple of people besides myself, and it was done in a very professional and mature adult way. Because I'm a pretty straightforward guy. I don't know if you guys have caught that yet or not.
I've worked with you before, Mr. Skelley. I definitely know that you don't take no crap, and you definitely, if you see something that you don't agree with, you're not afraid to let somebody know it.
No, I'm not. And as far as, you know, this historian society goes, you know, it's about, as you and Austin and Jimmy have all pointed out, it's about educating and being educated. And I'm really, you know, thus far I haven't had to deal with this yet in this organization, but I'm not going to really tolerate any of the childish usual internet BS that goes on with people talking smack or acting like they're cutting a promo for WWE. You know, I'm just not going for that stuff.
And that's how most people are on Facebook pages most of the time.
Oh yeah, there's keyboard tough guys all over the place. You know, and it cracks me up, you know, how tough people are on the internet. You know, I run 6'3", 248, and I don't see too many of these people acting that way when I'm standing in the same room with them. You know what I mean?
Well, I actually wanted to touch on that too as well, Mr. Skelley. That a topic that was talked about earlier with by chance in this case was by Dylan, and as far as how would the Undertaker be ranked. Now, be it, you know, obviously people who know me know how much I admire the Undertaker, but to put him in the same boat as guys who came, like, you know, as we were talking, Austin and I, like Strangler Lewis, like Gotch, like George, like, you know, you can even all those names you can't really compare. Different era. It was obviously he took the gimmick and made it what it was, and took it to the next level. Some agree that the gimmick may or may not have worked. I mean, I've always admired the person that he was, working even before WWE, when he did the WCW, his days in Texas. I mean, that brought up a lot of conversation, but not one of it, and this was where I was getting to with my point, not one of it really was really disrespectful at all. And it was all, you know, we were all just kind of educating ourselves, giving our opinions about the situation, and so forth.
Well, I pointed out, I think to some degree that gimmick was a blessing and a curse. Obviously, the blessing part is it was a protected gimmick that was created by McMahon, which propelled him into being a star. But the gimmick of the no-selling, you knew when he got knocked down he was gonna lay there for 1 second, set up, eyes would be rolling the back of his head, then he'd no-sell for the next 10 minutes, and it really hindered what he had to offer. And you got to see that when they changed his character to more of a dead man / motorcycle renegade, and he started working matches. I mean, the guy actually worked better in his late 40s than he did in his late 20s, which how many guys can you say that about? But do I rank him among the absolute elites? Absolutely not. He's never been the guy. And that right there disqualifies him from being one of the absolute elites, and I'm talking the elites of the greats. I think he is one of the greats. Yeah, I'm talking. You can't compare him to even hell. I'll even go so far as to just say you can't even compare him to somebody like Hogan or Bruno Sammartino. I mean, let alone going back to eras that it's really hard to comprehend because they were drawing in a whole different way. You know, they didn't have cable TV, they didn't have the internet. These people were out there throwing flyers up, and they were still able to draw thousands of fans. In some cases, tens and 20,000 plus fans to these arenas. You know, I mean, Jimmy will tell you. That's the thing that really caught my eye was Jimmy wasn't just researching a guy and writing a brief bio on him. Jimmy was coming back with facts and figures, showing what the gates were. You know, it really, really impressed me right out of the gates. And I mean,
it's like Jim Landos, for example, from the 90s. Well, he started like earlier in the 1930s, but he got into the 1930s, and he's one of the biggest stars the Northeast Coast has ever seen, but nobody's ever heard of him. He couldn't particularly wrestle that well, but he was a really handsome man with a well-chiseled body, kind of like Hulk Hogan would be on the Northeast Coast 50 years later. And he was literally drawing tens of thousands of fans and selling out Madison Square Garden near enough on a monthly basis in 1930 to 1935.
Yep.
And people have just never heard of him.
It goes. You don't even have to go that far back. Like I was talking about during my research on Dino Bravo, you go back and look at what he was drawing in Quebec, and we're talking from 80 to 86. The guy was drawing 22,000 standing room only, turning people away at the gates on a regular basis out there at the Forum in Montreal. You know, and that isn't that long ago. Yet the vast majority of people who don't live in Quebec have no idea how big that guy was out there. I mean, he was a mainstream star out there. And before it was normal to be mainstream as a wrestler, you know, there's a whole lot of educating to be done. I certainly am not trying to sit here and preach that I am the god of all wrestling knowledge. I am certainly not. I'm close. But damn it, I am not the god.
But no, you know what?
I will
you guys
give that
definitely
title
have
up to my boy Jimmy.
I couldn't find that.
You know what? That definitely could be well. I don't think any of us can disagree with that fact.
And you know, and I got to say, I'm really impressed. I'm still kind of chewing on the fact, Austin, that you're only 16 years old, man. I really am. I would have never guessed that from you know, talking with you within the group and all that. I would have never guessed that in a million years. And believe me, that's an extreme compliment coming from me.
And I really thank you for saying that, because there's a lot of people that say the exact same thing about me, even when they see me in person. Like they're like, "Oh, you're 16, Jesus Christ!" But I've been watching wrestling for 10 years, and even the first year I was watching it, I was going back and looking at the stuff that happened back in the day, even farther than, you know, the 1950s and stuff like that. I wanted to know what happened, what created this, and how did it come to be, you know? And it's so interesting. I love it so much. And this group right here, and once Felix, you know, directed me to it, I went on every single day since I've got on it. Like, I think it was like 3 weeks ago when I got onto it. And I learned something new every single day, and I love to put some of the stuff, you know, like today. And just I love it. I have no words. Like, I'm losing my words right now because I really love what you guys are doing.
Wow, I appreciate that. And you know, I think Jimmy and I have pretty much talked about this. You know, as much knowledge as we both have collectively, I'll open up that group and I'll look in there and Jimmy will post something and I'll just be like, "Holy crap, man! How in the hell did he get to that before me?" and I, you know, I'm blown away. I'm completely obsessed with Ozarati now because of you, Jimmy.
He's a worthy man to be obsessed with, though, to be fair.
Oh, he's the Dynamite Kid before the Dynamite Kid. It's just ridiculous stuff I'm finding out about that guy.
He still does Sorry, carry on.
No. You carry on, Sean. I've been gabbing this whole time. You go for it.
I was just going to say, he still does one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. I think he's about 5'6", and he weighs about 266 pounds. And the dude can do a one-arm handstand, and that's just so impressive.
Yeah, and didn't he hold it for something like a minute and a half at one time?
Some ridiculous amount of time. I can't remember what it was, but it's just insane how strong he was for such a small guy, and how athletic he was as well.
Well, see, and before you brought him to light, I only knew limited. I knew of him. I knew of some of his accomplishments. I knew that Bruno had spoken highly of him, and Thez had pretty much labeled him as a bum. And that was pretty much my knowledge on him, where it began and ended. So, there was my tidbit of knowledge that I learned that day. It goes on. There's people that posted. Terry Kent's posted stuff on there that blow my mind. Jim Myers, George Steele, to everybody. He's put stuff on there. Paula Dukes clued me in several times over the last couple of years on things that just blew my mind. And I've been blessed enough, to have been befriended by family members of some of these great workers. I
was just going to mention that too.
Yeah, I run the Hercules Hernandez official page with his family, and he has just wonderful daughters. His wife is just a wonderful woman. And I've been blessed with a lot of knowledge and pictures and stories and stuff that you'd have never known. I've become acquaintances / friends with Dino's daughter. She's a wonderful young lady. She's about to have a baby. It's sad Dino won't be around to see his only grandkid, but it is what it is. I've gotten to get to know the Boss Man's wife through Charles, who runs the Big Boss Man fan club. It's just a lot of people that I've gotten to know. Louis Lawrence, big star in Mexico, jobber and mid-carder in his homeland of Canada, but another industry worker. I've been blessed enough to be able to talk with and bounce things off their head. Got to know Steve Gatorwolf, Gino Brado. It's been a nice road. This is the one thing that I'll say about the internet is I've been blessed enough where, as my wife says, all my useless wrestling knowledge has become useful suddenly.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. And what's funny is that Steve Gatorwolf actually is the trainer of one of our former guests, who is an avid listener of ours as well. I've actually added him to the group as well, and he's definitely been intrigued and loving all of the education that he's getting as well. So a shout out to our good buddy Jagger Lane. He's actually a professional wrestler himself. Definitely a young man trying to do his thing in wrestling.
Well, he's in good hands, because I can tell you right now, I've had a couple of conversations with Steve, and I would highly recommend him as somebody to interview on your show. I'll even give him your particulars if you guys would like. He's a great guy, a great interview.
Absolutely, something to think about, Austin.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can get you guys in touch with him. We'll talk about that stuff some other time. Obviously, there's a few people I can get you in touch with. It's you really would enjoy Steve. Jimmy's talked to Steve a couple times on Pro Wrestling Old School Talk.
Yeah, Steve's a great guy to talk to, and he's full of knowledge as well.
Yeah, and he's not a. You got to ask him. Here's what you got to ask him, though. You want to ask him about Bret Hart, and then just let him talk.
Yeah,
I'm telling you right now. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, I was just saying, definitely ask him about Bret Hart. You'll have a hell of a conversation.
Yes, good things or bad things?
Not good.
Oh, not good. Well,
no.
I had a feeling you might say that.
Very entertaining, and I'm not going to get into some anti-Bret thing, because I'm very much a fan of his work. I really am. But from what I've gathered from my interviews, and I've interviewed, I think, about 27, 28 wrestlers now. And usually when I bring Brett's name up, I either get, oh, man, or a chuckle. And usually I get the sense that they've got something to say, and they're going to drop a bomb on me or they're just going to take the high road. Generally, they take the high road, but everybody pretty much ends with, he was brought up in kayfabe, he believes in kayfabe, and he believes he's Bret the Hitman Hart. So anything he says, just
so basically you're saying you give him a rating of a 4 out of 10.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure if he read some of my stuff on him, he'd give me a 1 out of 10 if I was lucky, you know. But I'd like to deal in facts and reality, you know. It is what it is. I mean, my favorite wrestlers are Dino Bravo, Jesse Ventura, and Randy Savage. Now, I can only legitimately try to make a case for one of those three guys as being like the greatest of all time. And would I love to say Jesse Ventura was the greatest wrestler of all time? Hell yeah, I would. Was he? No, absolutely not. And that's just a reality. You know, it is what it is. You know, facts will bear out over opinion every time. Every single
Well, that can also be said, too, about Randy Savage and Hogan, the constant comparison between the two from that generation. You know, obviously, the facts, obviously, Hogan put in, he was the one that made the most money, but I think everybody garnered a more of a respect for Randy Savage, the not only the performer, but the man as well.
Yeah, you know, for the most part, when he was running around doing that Macho Man rap thing and just kind of was obsessively pining for his hatred of Hogan, that was a little hard to take as a fan, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're dead on that. My thing is it's kind of hard to argue Hogan as not being the greatest of all time. You know, It's not some huge topic I want to get into, but if you're just going to look at bare facts, you're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody who did the kind of stuff he did for the amount of time that he did, nor are you going to find anybody who was able to stay relevant for nearly 30 years.
Exactly.
And right there, that's a pretty tough hand to beat. You know, and this is coming from a guy who is a bigger fan of Randy Savage than Hulk Hogan. And it is what it is, you know. But I say this, and I've always said this, I think the most complete wrestler, as far as you're going to take in-ring skills, you're going to take charisma, ring psychology, you're going to take character, all that stuff, mainstream stardom, drawing power, most complete package to ever be in wrestling, very well maybe Randy Savage.
I don't think anybody can argue that. I definitely won't. And I was going to ask you, too, did you actually get a chance to listen to the interview we did with Lanny?
Thus far, I have not had a chance to do that, but you got to accept my apology. I got a lot of kids. I got a lot of kids. I was racing to get my kids to bed so I could do this. Jimmy was laughing at me because he's just sitting there with his crumpets and tea, you know, chilling.
I'm just sitting there listening to you guys. Bit of jam, bit of crumpets.
Yeah, and here I am going, get to bed. Dad's got to get on the radio.
There you go.
So, you know, I will be listening to it. It's a miracle I was able to listen to the Bruno interview, I'll be honest. I haven't even gone back and listened to the interviews that me and George have done with people. I haven't gone back and listened to one of them. I did an interview with Tugboat on Evan Ginsberg's Legends Radio when I filled in for Mike Lano. I never got to go back and listen to that either. So
yeah, Mr. Ottman's a pretty cool guy. I like him.
Yeah, those guys are great. Evan's probably helped me as much as anybody has. He's really helped direct me the do's and don'ts of preparing for a documentary film. He is one of the most knowledgeable individuals I've ever met. He's a fabulous guy. If you guys haven't listened to Legends Radio, I would strongly suggest it. It's a great it's another educational run down memory lane. You know, it's in the same vein as what you guys are doing. It's, you know, there's a lot of good stuff out there, man. I feel bad for the people who are pigeonholed into thinking that there's just the WWE and that's it.
Thank
be
you.
all end all if they're not. I mean, I grew up definitely in the time when there was still the territories around. I mean, I'm not much older than Jimmy, but I am technically about a decade older than he is. But like I said, Austin and I were talking. You know, we both definitely thought we knew a good amount of history, but let me tell you, we are constantly getting re-educated every single day. I'm glad to say I'll be 35 on Sunday, and I've been following it since I was about 10 years old, and I continue to learn something every single day. And I'm not even a wrestler, although I did try it, but like I said, it's a learning experience even as a fan to get educated about who came before guys that you grew up watching yourself. I didn't grow up watching Bruno. I grew up watching guys like Hogan and Savage, but definitely in the aspect of what Austin was saying, to want to reach back even further to see who actually were some of the guys that were putting the butts in the seats back then.
Oh, well, Jimmy will tell you that. I'll tell you right now. Jimmy will tell you that.
I'll tell you what, for everyone to have one name to go look up from this interview, go look up Harry Hill.
Okay.
And he's from the about 1850s up until the end of the 1880s as a promoter and as a wrestler. And you will not find a more influential man, definitely on the promoting side of things, than Harry Hill. It's worth looking up.
Okay. Yeah, he's dead on that. He's dead on that. You know, there's so many guys. I mean, we could probably be on here for 6-7 hours just naming off people that you should research, let alone going over any of it. You know,
exactly.
Jimmy's brought to light. I mean, you guys may have caught that the origin of women's wrestling mini article that I did the other day.
I did see that.
From the burlesque theaters and all that. You know, that was actually, you know, inspired by Jimmy. I don't recall exactly what article it was of his, but I had that picture in my files. I'm kind of researching on it, just kind of half-assed, you know. I got it on the back burner doing this, doing that. And, you know, he was at the turn of the century on a couple of things in a row, and I just decided, well, you know what, let's see what this picture's all about. And so I started with the picture, found out what the picture was about, and just research after. And believe me, that article, as long as it was for a post on a group on a website, I could have probably filled up half of a magazine with all the research that I was able to do. And not bragging on myself, but I did this all in one night.
Huh. That's something to brag about.
There is so much out there, like, for you to put together for the early women's wrestling that a lot of people don't know, and even historians haven't discovered yet, because a lot of people don't look into women's wrestling. But it's such a fascinating time, and you can see how today people moan about women wrestlers aren't women wrestlers, but if you actually go back and look at the history, even the little stuff that we do know, you can see it's actually not that different. It's all built around sex.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's just a little more out in the open now, a little more theatrical. You know, I mean, well, they call it sports entertainment because.
Oh, well, there you go.
The age of wrestling, I wouldn't say it's closed. There's still some wrestling out there for people who can find it. But as far as mainstream WWE, even TNA, it's sports entertainment. Right now, you know, I get some heat from some of the people who follow the current product, you know, and if you're going to follow the current product, you're going to have to attach yourself to somebody. Somebody's got to be your guy, you know, and I get a lot of people like CM Punk and that guy running around with the beard yelling, yes, yes, yes. But the only guy that I see out of both organizations with any real true upside potential that uses ring psychology, that uses the craft that I learned when I went to Bud Sawyer School out here in Sacramento, is Bobby Roode?
Bobby Roode.
Bobby Roode,
that's a good choice.
That's the only guy I see right now with the kind of potential to maybe be the guy. But apparently that's not going to happen because, you know, he's in TNA. And honestly, I look at today's product, and WWE from week to week reeks of somebody just trying to catch lightning in a bottle. You know, they're not putting in any effort. They're not going through the tried true traditions of working angles, of continuing things, of working and promoting rushed. Somebody. Yeah, they're just from week to week. Let's try this. Let's see if this strikes. You know, you can't create those things. The biggest things that have happened in the WWF era were all fairly organic. I mean, there was some promotional work and stuff like that, but Hulk Hogan wasn't some manufactured thing. You know, he was in Rocky III. He toured the territories. He blew up everywhere. They brought him in, promoted him, boom, and that was that. Steve Austin, they just turned him loose with a mic and didn't censor him. And people loved the fact that a guy'd stand up there and flip everyone off and curse and do all the stuff that you're not used to seeing, and bam, now you had something. The NWO, that was something that was just kind of dropped in Eric Bischoff's lap, and it made wrestling big again. You know, you can't create that kind of stuff. If you could create that kind of stuff, Triple H truly would be as great as Triple H tries to tell us week after week he is.
Thank you.
You know, because there's never been a more manufactured wannabe superstar than him. You know, you can't do it. You cannot manufacture greatness. It doesn't work that way. It flat out does not work that way. And history will tell you that. Jimmy can vouch for that. History will bear that out. You cannot dictate what is going to be big.
Exactly, and just kind of expanding on what Greg was saying, one of the main problems with the business is it's a mirror of society. The society is made up of fads, like things that they come, people go mad for it for like a month or so, and then it goes. Wrestling's mirroring that at the moment. Like rock and wrestling, they keyed into society because rock was big in the 80s, and that's what helped them get big. Same in the Attitude Era, things like South Park, like Celebrity Deathmatch, all that kind of stuff was big, and they tapped into that audience and that social trend, and that's what got them over. Now that there's nothing really for them to tap into, they just need to find that social trend that's going to be the wave going forward, tap into that, and let people be themselves, and someone will break out that people can relate to.
Yeah, well, what was that Wyatt guy? They could have something with that Wyatt family, but I have all the faith in the world that they're going to screw that up.
Well, Bray has a strong backing.
What's that?
Bray definitely has a strong backing with his grandfather being Blackjack Mulligan and everybody he's surrounded with in his family. He has a lot of people to train and learn from, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you what, too, you just made me mark out inside my head when you said Blackjack Mulligan. He's just awesome. He's an awesome guy to talk to. He's just an awesome wrestler. That whole family is just great for the business, you know. And you're absolutely right. He comes with a blue blood pedigree as far as wrestling heritage and tradition goes.
And we actually had him on last July or March, I think, and he was one of the most just so interesting. Like, I was hardly even asking him questions, just listening and sitting back and just hearing all they had to say. I think it went over like 2 hours. He was so, and if you guys get a chance to listen to the actual interview, you will love it, like every single second of it. He has so many stories to tell.
That's Bob or his grandson?
No, I'm talking Blackjack Mulligan.
Yeah, Bob, okay. Yeah.
It was him.
Yeah, he's fabulous. He was one of the first guys I interviewed when I was doing my research on Dino, and he told me a story of when Dino came out there. You know, he's all you know, the guy. Most people didn't even realize before his strongman thing how strong that kid was. He slapped a figure 4 on me and damn near broke my leg, and he and I kind of got into it, and I had to let him know, you're stronger than you think you are, and you're going to freaking break my leg. You need to ease up. And he was a big reason why Dino became a big star. because he was the guy who saw it in him. He said, look at the guy. He looks like Superman. He's got all the technical skills. He can lift a 300-pound guy up into a suplex, but nobody's pushed him, and he hasn't drawn a dime. And every wrestler you talk to that isn't some bitter, broken-down wrestler will tell you that's what it's about, is your ability to draw. And he put Dino over clean on TV twice in one night, and he was a main event wrestler from that moment on throughout pretty much the rest of his career. And, you want to talk about a guy who knows the business, that's a guy who basically told the bookers, George South and I believe it was Ole Anderson, that were kind of in control of the books from, for the mid-card. He pretty much told them, I'm going to go job to him twice on TV. He's going to be a main eventer. My character will not suffer from this. And he went out and did it. So the guy knows what he's talking about. The guy, how he was never brought in after, post-career and all that, and as some type of booker is just beyond me. The guy had a great eye for talent. He could show people that you can job in this business and still come out looking strong. There's quite a few guys really needed to learn that lesson. At some point, it's a funny business, man. It is one funny business. My first look inside of it came when I was getting trained by Buzz Sawyer. And you're taught right out of the gates about kayfabe, and how can I put this? He was a very, very stiff trainer. First day there, he would just jack you up in that ring, and I think there's 16 people signed up, and come day 3, I think there was 7 of us left.
Huh.
It was rough.
That's crazy.
It was rough, and he's the first guy to open my eyes. This isn't just guys falling down on some foamy little pad. These guys may know how to fall, and they may be trying to protect each other, but they're beating the crap out of each other 300 nights a week or a year. It's a grueling business, and that's why, when I hear people talk smack on wrestling, I'm just like, you just don't. Why don't you just go do it for a month? Just go work for a month and get back to me on that. I mean, Jimmy, throughout your research, you've come across some horrific injuries and things that guys had to endure.
Yeah, of course. You hear about it all the time. People like breaking ribs and having to go to the tour the next day, or Ole Anderson springs to mind from that, being stabbed in the ass, I think it was, and then wrestling the next night, or getting his it was his chest. He got his chest slashed, and he went to the ring the next night to wrestle.
Chest. Yeah. He
punched out the guy as well.
Yeah, and anybody want to guess who was wrestling that night when he got stabbed? Anybody?
Wait, which that?
He was wrestling Dino Bravo that night he got stabbed. So that's how I wound up coming across all that information on that one.
Wow.
Yeah, it was him and Mr. Wrestling, Tim Woods, taking on the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, and he was such a good heel at drawing heat. Somebody apparently thought that Woods or Dino needed to be protected, and somebody tried to stab him. That's kayfabe right there. That's just crazy. And see, and that's another problem with today's product is McMahon killed kayfabe. There's no prestige anymore. It's not very prestigious to hold up a belt that's basically saying, that's right, they wrote it into the script that I would be the 50th guy over the last 10 years to hold this belt. It's the prestige is gone. But kayfabe is also a flip. We're both historians, and the business was so well protected back in the day. There's a lot of stuff that has just fallen through the cracks over the years. There's a lot of stuff you got to decipher, fact or fiction.
Yeah, completely.
It wasn't out in the open. It's not out in the open. They weren't just giving away secrets back in those days. And a lot of these guys have been dead for decades upon decades. So it's you got to kind of be a detective and you got to decipher what's BS, what's kayfabe, what's reality. And even sometimes you still walk away even more puzzled than when you went into researching the subject.
And that's with,
I was talking.
Like with,
I was talking to someone today. Oh, sorry, carry on, Austin.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I was talking to someone today, and they said something again. It's so true with wrestling. There's three sides to every story. There's what one person says, there's what the newspapers say, and then there's the truth, which is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's like that whenever you're researching wrestling, there's always three sides to every story, because you never know what's live, what's actual fact, what's true, or what's just kind of tweaked.
Exactly.
It just makes the whole thing so hard.
And you also got to be careful when you're directly quoting people, because, like I pointed out, there's people who have, lied. There's, some of it's kayfabe, some of it's just, maybe somebody being bitter, and, you guys have interviewed wrestlers. You try asking a wrestler who had a long career about one specific night. You're lucky if if he remembers that night, because he worked that same match probably 100 times that year with that same person, and it just seems like one long match. Not to mention all the travel, all the chair shots to the head, all the mishaps in the ring, the concussions. You'll have this well prepared question for one specific event, and then their answer is, I don't even really recall. And then where do you go with that?
That's kind of like with Kevin Von Erich not last week, 2 weeks ago. He was actually telling us how much his family tried to preserve what kayfabe was, And in the interview, like one of the first things he was talking about, how he had a story of how they did, preserve it throughout, like phone calls. They did certain things to make it a secret, to keep it a secret, like how it was supposed to be.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was a time-honored tradition, and me and Jimmy got into a talk, about the Riot Squad, who kind of laid out. I mean, kayfabe was already in place, obviously, long before this, but they kind of laid out the kayfabe formula that everybody followed along with. It was a very respected, honored, and protected element of the business, and very, very powerful. That whole allure of, is it real? Is it not real? That really propelled wrestling for a good number of decades. That doubt that it's some type of scripted, worked match. And they would always pull stuff off, to make any of the doubters go, oh, well, crap. No, that was real, man. So that they could always put that sliver of doubt. The dog collar match with Valentine and Piper, they basically told each other, don't injure each other, but basically go out there and really beat the crap out of each other. We want this to be brutal, memorable, and we want it to be real.
Was it?
And they did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did, and that was the norm. That's what a lot of people don't realize.
Absolutely.
Going back to Ole Anderson for a second, and his motto when he was in the ring as the Minnesota Wrecking Crew was, go in there like it's a shoot, but don't actually kill anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the way most of the professionals went into that. You obviously had some guys that were unprofessional. You had some other guys that weren't quite as apt to the stiff working. There's a lot of guys who didn't want to work stiff. They didn't want to work with certain guys, but they all did have the common passion for the industry. And if you talk to anybody who worked in the industry or their family members, you'll know every single guy, whether they're at the bottom of the card or the main event, that did it for any length of time, they had to have a passion and love for the industry, because it is a rough business. Basically, it's like being a truck driver who stops every night at a truck stop and gets in a fight. And that would be a rough life.
All right.
That would be a rough life. Nothing but travel, bruises, stitches, broken bones, and more travel. It's a rough life. I did a quick little piece, which I've already started expanding upon, which will probably be my first article when we do launch a legitimate website, about the trials and tribulations and the toll that the industry demands upon a worker. And everybody thinks they grasped it, but, until you talk to one of these guys' wives or kids, some of the kids didn't even know their dad barely, until you talk to some of these guys and they tell you the stories about what a rough life on the road was. A lot of people don't realize it is very hard to find anybody to give you health insurance when you're a professional wrestler. And back in those days, you didn't have the wellness program. These promoters weren't giving them benefits. These promoters weren't, taking care of these guys. You broke your fingers out on the road. It was up to you to get them fixed, pay for it, and then get your butt to your next match, or you ain't getting paid. Period. End of story. There's no but I got a boo boo. I can't. There's none of that. You better have a broken back or a broken neck, and you're still not getting paid. That was just a harsh reality of the business. So you couldn't go into it without some type of passion and love for the business. I mean, the Ultimate Warrior is one of the very few guys I can think of that didn't have a passion for the business. Well, Goldberg too. Those two guys came.
Lex Luger.
Shall we start naming them?
Yeah, but you got Luger. Luger loved the business just enough to stick. The other two guys, it's almost like they had a great disdain for the business, despite the fact that they rose up to a near Hulk Hogan type level of popularity and fame quickly, very quickly. But neither one of them had the same passion as, say, Ric Flair or Randy Savage or Blackjack Mulligan, LeDukes, Vacans, any of those names that are synonymous with longevity in the wrestling world. They didn't have that, and they both burn out quite quickly. Same kind of thing with Lesnar. I don't see the passion with which is a shame, because Lesnar could have been big.
He's really that good.
Could have been the next big thing. He just doesn't like the sport. It is what it is. He's a competitive guy, and it's a non-competitive industry. It's an entertainment industry, and he doesn't really like people, and that's where your bread and butter is. So that's kind of a bad mixture.
That's something though that they can't do with the new products. They're never going to get kayfabe back. Let's face it. But people believe Lesnar is a badass because he acts like a badass 24/7. I seen the Miz on Twitter earlier, who's just turned heel, and he was pandering to the fans and talking to the fans and being all nice and winning competitions for them. But we know you're not actually a heel in real life, but you could at least do it on your Twitter where all the fans are, to give the illusion that you are actually a bad guy. And people will still kind of believe into it a little bit. It doesn't have to be complete kayfabe, although it would help. But just that little bit of playing the character off the screen as well goes a long way to getting the casual fan anyway to believe.
Well, and he's a good example of somebody who's got an advantage, because he is a legitimate badass. He did the UFC thing. A lot of people want to talk smack. Oh, he got his ass handed to him. Well, yeah, whatever. He's in there with a steroid freak and some guys who've been doing it a lot longer than him. But he still got in there, and nobody dropped him. Nobody legitimately knocked him out. He got in there, and the guys he did beat, I can tell you right now from a guy who's done some of that training, he beat some guys that would break your neck, man. He is legitimate, and he could be one of those few guys who could work, like you were saying, Jimmy, a sliver of kayfabe back into the product, but it's not important anymore to them, It goes right back to the let's try to do something big this week. Oh, crap, ratings are in the toilet again. Let's just blame it on Monday Night Football, and we'll try something else next week. It's just not. It's not going to work that way. They got to. Jimmy pointed this out about giving. They got to find someone who connects with the fans. Right now, they don't have that. You go back to the late 1800s, and most of the guys who were able to draw those big crowds, that was the thing, man. They connected with the fans. They brought them back the next week. They weren't watching them on TV. There was no such thing as TV. But those fans were buying them tickets and coming back and watching those guys week after week by the thousands because they connected with the fans. And that is what they have to find. When Jimmy said that, I was like, damn, I've been spending all this time telling everybody that these guys are mid-card talents and nobody really is into them, when really he hit the nail on the head. It's not even so much as their mid-card talents or anything like that. They just haven't connected with a large fan base, and people will point out, oh, CM Punk's got his fans, he's this, and that. Of course he's got his fans, I mean, Virgil has fans.
Are you sure?
But, yeah, no, I'm sure he's at least got 3 or 4. He's got it. He's got to have some fans. But that's not what when Jimmy or I or most people are talking about something like CM Punk. Can CM Punk wrestle? Yeah, I've watched him. I think he's a little overhyped by a lot of the people on the internet. I don't think he's all that great. I don't think he's a hack, but I don't think he's some technical genius. I don't think that he doesn't blow me away. He literally looks like some guy in a hoodie that they just pulled out of the audience, and that is a problem because who wants to buy into that? Not many people. I hear all these people,
with him, though,
Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor, how big is Ring of Honor? How many people, if you walked into a mall and talked to 50 people, how many of those people even know what Ring of Honor is?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they got a bad product because, they've got some good wrestlers. They've had some great, exciting in-ring moments. But if they had even one significant moment in the history of wrestling, no. None. Not one. And that sounds harsh, but it's the reality of things, and that gets back, like Jimmy is saying, you got to have somebody, at least one guy that the fans really connect with, because then they come in, then they watch the whole card. If you look at the 2 big boom periods of the modern era, and I'm talking since wrestling, went national, not the territories, but you look at the Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin NWO era, whatever you want to call them. I don't care what you brand them. A big common factor of that, they had a big star on top, and everybody from the bottom of the card in the prelims up to that guy were over with the audience. Everybody. Didn't matter if they sucked. Didn't matter if they were ridiculous, had a bad gimmick. Everybody was over. I mean, they had Rashiki out there dancing with Jerry Lawler's kid and that other little teeny guy who wormed or whatever he did, It was ridiculous. It was just ridiculous, but the crowd was going nuts every time they went out and did it. Everybody in WCW was over, I mean, you had Raven's Flock out there in the beginning of the card. They were crazy over. You had the Luchas, and I'm assuming they were crazy over, but honestly, I usually change the channel when the Luchas came on because I don't really like Lucha. But you look at him. I mean, back in Hogan's day, everybody at the big opening of the card, the tag teams, everybody was over, and it all stems back to that one guy who drew in the masses and made people look at the product. And then people are like, "Oh wow, that Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat, that was just incredible." Nobody would have watched that if it wasn't for Hogan and Andre. But the fact of the matter is, the crowd then attached to them, and then it trickled down to the next guy, and so on and so forth. I mean, you got to get that guy who really connects with the crowd. Some people will say, well, John Cena does, but he connects with a crowd, but it's not a wide enough variety. You had adults, children, longtime wrestling fans. A lot of people bought into Hogan. A lot of people bought into Austin. Right now, Cena's a kid thing. My kids all love John Cena. All my kids love John Cena. My son thinks Rey Mysterio Jr. is the second greatest wrestler of all time behind only Hulk Hogan. Now that right there, my 7-year-old son not only knows who Hulk Hogan is, but considers him the greatest. That kind of tells you the imprint of what a guy who can connect with fans can do for your product. And I realize I'm babbling. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sucking up all the airtime.
What do you think about Bryan? He's getting
Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, Daniel Bryan, I think, is a fine wrestler. He's got some great technical skills. He's a good worker. and he will never, ever, not in a million years, ever be a star that draws in a mainstream crowd. Not ever. I don't see it happening.
I have to agree with that.
And it's not a knock on him. It's not a knock on him at all. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, you just don't like him because he's a little blah blah blah." No, that has nothing to do with it. No, he doesn't have that it factor. He's connecting with some of the audience, but he's not going to draw anyone in. I can tell you right now, my kids look at him and they're like, "Who is this hobo?" You know, they don't want to watch him. They have no desire to watch the guy.
But also that with Daniel, though, he's under the thumb of somebody who gets criticized quite a bit for burying his talent, and that would be Triple H.
Oh, I don't think I watch him sporadically, but from what I've seen, they didn't do him any favors by coming out and basically saying what I just said in a work promo. You know, and saying you're too small, you look like a freaking hobo, nobody really is buying into you. We don't want you as a face of the company.
Exactly.
That to me, that's a bad push right there. You know, they didn't do him any favors. Do I think it would have worked anyways? No, absolutely not. You know, Eddie Guerrero was a great wrestler, but, you know, I mean, he became champion. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
The numbers dropped dramatically, you know. You can't just put a belt on a guy and expect him to become a superstar. The man makes the belt. It's been that way through the whole entire history of this. When somebody gets a title, they were already the big thing, and the guy holding the title knew his time was up, and he laid down and gave the title up to the next big thing, and that's the way it should be.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Actually, guys, I want to go ahead and say we're winding down with the last few minutes of airtime, so I definitely want to thank both Jimmy. No, he's way up past his bedtime. And, of course, Mr. Skelley for taking time tonight and just educating us again, just continuing on that education. And you know, go ahead, Austin.
I said, and, you know, I want you guys to come back, like, anytime you guys want to. Seriously. Felix probably say the same because I think there's so much to be talked about.
No. It has nothing to do with me personally. I just say that, you know, with their schedules and I know with the time zone situation with Jimmy as well. I don't know his situation. But as far as airtime goes, we're more than would be willing to love to have you back on the show anytime. But as far as tonight goes, yes, we definitely have to cut it short. Let everybody go here.
We're running long. It's been running long as it is, Felix, and I appreciate the time. I appreciate all the help promoting the organization.
Absolutely. We don't normally do that for a lot of pages because it's just like we said, wrestling pages are just that. They're just pages that really aren't there to educate, whereas Austin and I want to learn. We want also other people to know more about the history, not what you see today, because that's not the be-all, end-all. It never has been.
No.
I mean, there's stuff that came before that, and with this and continuing to push it as much as we can. I don't have very many pages, but I'll be damned if people ain't going to find out about this group and find out the history in some form or fashion.
Well, I appreciate the plug, and I appreciate, you know, this is an opportunity. This is my first opportunity to talk to Jimmy on the phone and not just over the internet, you know. And I for that alone, this was a great experience because, you know, I really wanted to talk to my boy, you know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
To talk to you all.
Absolutely. More than proud to have you guys on here again. Anytime, sometime before the end of the year, maybe sometime in 2014. Who knows? If I can get Bruno on again, Mr. Skelley, we definitely invite you. And for all intents and purposes as well, Jimmy, you're more than welcome to join us as well. Like I said, the time zone issue is what worries me because I don't know exactly what goes on at certain times for you, what your schedule looks like. Since it's apparent that I guess Greg's here in California on my side, he's usually probably up pretty late anyways, I'm assuming.
Oh, I am.
Okay.
I like it out on the West Coast, man.
I do too.
Don't worry about me. I can work my time schedule around whenever you're happy to have us on. To be honest, it's 6 a.m. It's 6 a.m. here, but that's fine.
Holy
I can
cow.
make it. It's no problem.
All fine, right? I wouldn't.
Wow.
I wouldn't got up. Especially in the UK, man.
I'm going to bed in a couple of hours.
No, just a couple of hours.
But see, that's Jimmy. That's his dedication right there. Yeah.
Wrestling.
my boy.
You know what? I do want to ask from you, Jimmy, and Mr. Skelley, I wanted to ask you a quick question. If at all possible, before we let you go here, if once you guys get the website going, get the ideas that you have into play to spread the word, not just through Facebook, but once this website gets up and going, if there's any way that we can help contribute by mentioning it or what have you through our social media or even kind of touching on it on our shows each week, let us know. Austin and I, through him, through either one of us. I'm the boss, but we both run it technically. So,
well, maybe we can work out some kind of weekly little spot or something like that, and we'll link everything up. My plan is to have the website linked to quite a few things, but only credible things, only things that are going in the same vein as what me and Jimmy have envisioned. Without even discussing
that's the same thing can be
we
said
have
with us
the
as
same
well.
vision. Yeah.
We want to build credibility with people that we have on the show, which is why we've tried to reach out to some of the biggest names we've had. I mean, you see the name, a lot of people see the name and think it's just some fly-by-night, podcast. It was a name, it was something I came up with a former partner of mine. But like I said, we wanted to build the credibility, and I think in such a short time to have gotten a chance to speak to all of who we've had to speak to, be it indie stars, be it past stars, be it current stars, we've been very blessed. And that's why I say with the knowledge and just by chance of how I actually met you, Mr. Skelley, by accidentally stepping on your toes, not meaning to, by the way, but anything we can do to contribute to help out, we would be more than welcome and more than happy to help out.
Well, I appreciate it. I like the work that I've seen from you guys on the internet. I'll be honest. I thought at first when I first saw you plug this thing, Felix, I was thinking, oh, here's another, like you said, fly-by-night little blog radio thing. And then I saw Bruno Sammartino, Blackjack Mullet. I was like, man, that is awesome. That's somebody who's dedicating himself to being legitimate, and that's pretty much what we're looking for, my partner Jimmy, I got absolutely nothing but high expectations because I know what I got in Jimmy, and I've been touting Jimmy's talents for quite some time, as he knows, and it's
well, I actually want to do my own touting and actually mention that even though I did start this podcast, I don't think I could have taken it to the heights that I've taken it without Austin. He's young. He's still a kid. But you know what? The kid's knowledge is measurable to any historian out there today. And his skills as a graphic designer has been people have constantly raved on how awesome the logo we have for the show and everything. And I'd love to take it to the next level, and even if, by any means necessary, we can definitely, we want to keep going and making 2014 and beyond even more better for us.
Who made the graphic for plugging us for being on tonight?
That would be Austin.
And that was a great graphic, but you forgot the E at the end of my name, young man.
Oh, God.
I feel bad because it's my name, and I didn't even catch it until this morning when I plastered it on every page that I run, and I was like, wait a minute. So I'm just busting your chops. Trust me,
I don't know.
That's a normal mistake.
It probably happened tons of times before with different people, but
my name constantly. I'll have people leave that E off. I'm just giving you crap, man. That's just what I do.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry about that.
No. Don't apologize. Don't apologize. Seriously, I'm just messing with you, man. Jimmy.
Everyone knows Greg anyway.
Yeah, I'm an obnoxious man, but Jimmy levels it out. He's got that good British even keels kind of form. I'm definitely the heel of the group.
Oh, trust me.
What do you know? Austin tends to be the heel of my group here, so.
Yeah, Felix is obnoxious himself,
Awesome. That's the way to be.
You should listen to the Saturday night shows. Jesus Christ, I kill him.
Yes, we have
really
watch our Saturday shows. We definitely do.
Watch when Jimmy does a heel turn. When somebody pisses Jimmy off, all of a sudden the mild-mannered Brit just goes full-on Cockney crazy, man. It's great.
Actually, he did that earlier with Chris Sells on the page, on the group there that we have about the Undertaker.
Oh God, Chris Sells.
Yes, and I know Mr. Sells he's not one to sugarcoat anything either. So yes, I can only imagine how Jimmy would come unglued if somebody steps on his toes too.
I got Jimmy's back. I got Jimmy's back, and Jimmy deals in facts, so it's going to be kind of hard to win an argument with him.
Very true, very true. But again, we want to thank you guys for hanging out with us, and like I said, we'll keep tabs and see how things go, and just let us know whatever we can do, and keep on doing what you're doing because we're loving it, and the group can only continue to grow even bigger and bigger from here.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks, Jimmy, for being part of this, man. Being my partner.
Thank you for having me, Greg, and thank you for having us on the show tonight.
Not a problem, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Austin, it was nice talking to you, buddy.
Same here to you. From two of you,
all right,
respect.
Thank you, man. I got a lot of respect for your guys' show and what you're doing. I'll be checking out your archives, and I'm sure we'll be talking tomorrow out in the social media world.
There you go.
All right, you all have a nice night. Good night, Jimmy. It was good talking to you, bro.
Good night. All right, good night, guys.
Nice talking to you. Night, Austin. Night, Felix. Great talking to you.
Good night.
Good night, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Take it easy.